Well, good. I am glad to see y'all. I put on Facebook early today. I have no idea what I'm gonna say, so if I sound like a bumbling idiot tonight, y'all gonna have to forgive me. It's been a long week, but I want to shout out to my Jefferson High School classmates. Y'all, I'm repping my Frogtown T-shirt. If you ain't from Jefferson, Texas, you don't know nothing about Frogtown. But I was the guest speaker at the sixth annual Frogtown reunion and got to see my classmates, and they showed me so much love, and I appreciate that so very much. Well, I want to get that out first and shout out to Frida and Jean and Bebe. If you ain't from Texas, you didn't have nobody named Bebe in your class. But Alfred, I appreciate y'all. Hattie, man, Dorothy, Joe, Rodney, y'all. Thank y'all for showing me so much love. I'm gonna do a shout out on Facebook too. I know y'all thought I forgot, but I'll never forget a kindness, and I thank you. Uh, yeah, y'all, we got a lot to talk about, and I know y'all have heard a lot talk about. And my Frogtown people, y'all remember what I told you? I remember I told you. Uh, your due season. Wait on due season. That fifth season, y'all know what I'm talking about. My Frogtown peeps. So thank y'all so very much, and I know y'all have heard probably everything y'all need to hear about this race with Ken Paxton and Opie, James Talarico. It's so much out there. And y'all know I'm not a political commentator. I don't do political commentary. I try to give y'all the behind the scenes look of what I see as a native Texan, fifth generation Texan, a former 4-decade-long Republican who has been politically unhoused now for a very long time. Since 2018. So I own up to, I was a Republican for 40 years. First person I voted for was Ronald Reagan. The first Republican that I voted for was Ronald Reagan. The last Republican that I voted for was Donald Trump. The first time. I learned the first time. Because I ain't nothing about him. Okay, I'm just voting the ticket, man. I ain't watched The Apprentice. I ain't do none of that. Then I looked at that man and I go, what in the world is this? Oh my God. So, it was either stay in the party and suck it up. And those who know me know I ain't no suck up, so I couldn't do that. So I ain't had no party since 2018. However, I know the party. And I know a little bit about Texas politics. So that's what we talk about, the behind the scenes stuff. Because y'all can get all that other stuff on Midas, you can get it on Don Lemon, you can get all the other stuff there. But what we're going to talk about tonight, the big story to me, not to me, but the big story is not that Ken Paxton won, but how much Ken Paxton won by. Some people were shocked and some people were surprised. I have to admit, I was disappointed. Although y'all know I support Opie, Talarico. But I was just disappointed and sad because unless you've been in Republican politics for a very long time, all you saw was that Paxton gave Cornyn an ass whipping of 64% to I think it was 36%. But those of us who have been around a while, and those of us who grew up in the Republican Party, it was a sad thing because it was not that he defeated Cornyn, and he did. But the biggest story is what kind of Republican Party just rejected a John Cornyn by that margin. That's the story. And I think that's the story that a number of people are looking at. They're looking at the takeaways, and they're looking at the numbers, and they're looking at the people versus Ken Paxton and what is that new shirt, the Talarico, whatever, all that stuff. But that's not the story. The story is, what is this we're dealing with in Texas with this Republican Party? And my takeaways are probably a little bit different from others. And I've read the news accounts, but let me tell you how I see it. In my 5 takeaways, that Trumpism is no longer an insurgency in Texas. It is the new establishment. And I'm going to get to that in a minute, why that is important. And my second takeaway is that electability arguments no longer matter the way they once did. There was once a time in the Republican Party in Texas that Ken Paxton wouldn't have even been considered for senator, let alone the standard bearer. That is a huge sea change. And Ted Cruz used that word sea change because it was on a number of fronts. And that is the biggest one to me, I believe, although it's my second takeaway, that electability arguments no longer matter the way they once did. And then the third one that we cannot ignore is that character. 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 Y'all remember the Republican Party, oh, family values, oh, marriage, oh, family, faith, and family values. Yeah, well, listen, that's out the window. Character scandals no longer disqualify candidates if voters see them as a fighter. If they hate the same people, the new Republican Party in Texas, it's just like national. If they hate the same people, they hate they good. Character don't matter. That doesn't matter anymore. That mattered with the old Republican Party that I'm going to get to, because it's important, y'all, to look at where this Republican Party has come from and where this Republican Party is now and where I see this Republican Party going. And then my third takeaway is that Republican primary voters choose confrontation over stability. John Cornyn was a much more stable candidate. John Cornyn was a much more favored candidate. John Cornyn had deep roots. I mean, a native Texan. Ken Paxton is not even, he's not a native Texan. He's not from here. But John Cornyn had deep roots. But for this new Republican primary voter don't matter no more. And then my last takeaway is that Texas Republicans just told the country what they value most right now. And they ain't got nothing to do with family values. Ain't got nothing to do with marriage. Ain't got nothing to do with that. Ain't got nothing to do with none of that. What they value most now is combat grievance and loyalty. And that's loyalty, fealty to one man, i.e. Donald Trump. And that is going to be a major factor for them, against them, going forward. But that's what matters to them now. So those are my 5 takeaways. So what happens, the deeper question, y'all, is this, and I want y'all to jump in too. The deeper question for me is, what happens to a nation when people of a major political party stop choosing leaders based on character and start choosing them on something like, tribal loyalty? But that's what we're seeing with MAGA. And that's what filtered down in this race in Texas. So that's just not a question for Texas. That's a question for the nation, the United States of America going forward, particularly with the Republicans. Is, when do people stop choosing leaders based on character and start choosing them based on emotional tribal loyalty? That's a big question. And that is the question going forward for this Republican Party. Because if there was not an outside figure like Donald Trump and MAGA, where would this Republican Party be? Because it has traded what it was for that. It's going to collapse. It can't last. Historically, it never does. So Cornyn lost despite the money, the experience, the influence. I mean, I think he was number 4 in senatorial influence, and that takes a long time to get there. So with Paxton, if Paxton wins, it's going to put Texas back at the bottom of the rung, at the back of the line, and then Ted Cruz becomes the senior senator from Texas. And a whole lot of people don't like him. So he ain't going to be getting no plum assignments, I don't think. He may, but I don't think. And John Cornyn lost despite establishment support. And not only that, what's so hurtful, and I know what's so hurtful for him, is decades of experience. I mean, service. Decades of service. John Cornyn started out as a state district court judge, and he rose to state Supreme Court, then Attorney General, and then to senator. Now, the funny thing about that, not funny, but ironic, if you've been in Texas a long time, you understand. John Cornyn, even though they are now on opposite sides of the spectrum of Republican spectrum, John Cornyn and Greg Abbott are the last of the Mohicans. Why did I say they're the last of the Mohicans? Because when when John Cornyn got elected, see, I got to tell y'all all this. So when y'all hear these national commentators and y'all look at these YouTube channels and you hear all this, you will have a frame of reference that people just don't get or know. Hear the news, but there's a frame of reference, especially when it comes to Texas. Because see, Texas is about roots. Texas is about deep roots and tradition. So the national media may be looking at this as just an upset victory. It's so much more than that. It's so much more than that, because see, Cornyn and Greg Abbott and Rick Perry. Go back to there. Rick Perry. 2002. He was governor. 2002. So why did I go back to 2002? Because y'all, Texas in 2002, when John Cornyn, and some of y'all sitting in high school or something like that. But when John Cornyn went to the Senate in 2002, Rick Perry ascended to governor. Greg Abbott ascended to guess what office? Attorney General. And why is that important? Because from the Bush, from the Perry era, let me back up to help those who are not from Texas, even those who are from Texas don't understand the Republican politics of Texas. There's 3 eras, ERAS, in Texas Republican politics that you can pinpoint. The Bush era, the Tea Party era, and now the Trump-Paxton era. In 2002, it was still the era of Bush. Rick Perry had ascended to governor. Now, what does that have to do with Greg Abbott and where we are now? Because Greg Abbott is the last of the Mohicans. He's the last of the Mohicans. Where is that? I wrote it down. Let me see. Because since 1994, and I'm going to go back to that. I'm going to go back. And y'all, if I ain't making no sense, y'all stop me. I told y'all I'm all over the place tonight. But I want you to get why this loss was so devastating to Republicans, to the Republican establishment, to the Republican Party in Texas. Because like Ted Cruz said, it does represent a sea change. There has not been, and those of you who know this know, that there's not been a Democrat elected statewide since 1994. And the last Democrat to be elected in 1994, God bless him, he's home with the Lord. I guess he's not now. But Bob Bullock, you had to kind of question Bob Bullock, cuss you out in a minute. But Bob Bullock was a good man. He was a true Texan. He was the last Texan Democrat elected statewide in 1994. And he was elected lieutenant governor. So in 1994 is when Texas changed. Because in 1994 is when the Republicans became the majority party in Texas. Now, since it had been since Reconstruction, 100 years, that the Democratic Party was the dominant party in Texas. That began to change in the 1960s. I mean, if you recall the Southern strategy. And when people like Ted Cruz, now Ted Cruz knows better. But when people try to say, oh, it was the Democrats that enslaved people, oh, it was the Democrats that the Ku Klux Klan came from, they will not tell you that was post-Reconstruction, but prior to the Southern strategy. So the Democratic Party in Texas had been the dominant party. it began to change in 1960s, in the 1960s with the civil rights movement and blacks becoming more aggressive with rights. And Lyndon Johnson famously said when he signed the Civil Rights Act that the South has lost the Democrats have lost Texas for the next 200 years. He wasn't far off. But let's look at what was going on. So it began to change in the 60s, 70s, on up to the 90s. And in the 90s is when it changed for good up until now. So when you hear people say there has not been a Democrat elected since 1994, that's correct. But let me show you what Texas looked like. Let's compare in 1994, because y'all know y'all gonna come here. Y'all gonna come here and get like a history lesson. Y'all gonna come here. We go to class when we come here. So in 1994, the Texas population was 18.4 million. Today it's 31.7, which is a measurable, a monstrous increase of 13.3 million people that have moved to Texas since 1994. I want you to particularly look at these numbers. The non-Hispanic whites in 1994 was 61%. Today, non-Hispanic whites are less than 40%. You hear me? And I'm going to tell you why that's important in a minute. Whites dominated Texas in 1994. The predominant population of 61%. Hispanics was 25%. Blacks, 12%, Asian and other collectively 2%. Fast forward to 2026, that we have grown by 13.3 million people. That Hispanic number and that white number have flipped. Whites are no longer the majority in Texas. Hispanics are. You see your numbers? Blacks ain't changed. Proportionately, blacks have remained the same. The Asian population has grown. As a matter of fact, the Asian population, although it's 5.1 to 5.4%, the Asian population by rate grew faster than the black population, although they are a smaller population. Now, y'all know I go by the numbers. And I go by the numbers because I tell you beforehand what's going to happen, because I look at the numbers, because the data doesn't lie. Okay, so that is what was going on in 1994. That's what Texas looked like. This is what Texas looks like today in 2026. Y'all recall, some of you will recall, back in December, when James Tallarico, and y'all stop me if I'm not making sense, if I'm disjointed. Because I'm trying to do this. I told y'all I know what I'm doing. Okay. Back in December, when James Tallarico was running against Jasmine Crockett, I said back then that James Tallarico was going to put him over, is going to be the Hispanic vote. The Hispanic vote was going to go to Tallarico. Now, when Tallarico went to the Rio Grande Valley, and I know some of you who watch me know this because I did everybody was getting ready for Christmas, but I was not, and I saw it and I go, oh my God. Back in December, Bobby Polito and James Tallarico cross-endorsed one another. Now, you're not going to hear that much today, but they made a big deal out of it at an event where they cross-endorsed one another, Bobby Polito and James Tallarico. And the national press now, I saw Rick Wilson interview Bobby Polito. The national press now has picked up on that, but we knew that back in December, and we knew the importance of it back in December because we said whoever got the Hispanic vote was going to win. I said it's no way that Jasmine Crockett is going to get the Hispanic vote, that Tallarico is going to get the Hispanic vote, because those are his peeps. I mean, he has family down at the border. He is from Central Texas, which is more Hispanic than black. So Bobby Polito himself was running for a contested seat. He's running for a contested seat to flip back a blue seat from the Republicans that they stole from the Democrats. Bobby Polito won his primary, which I said he was going to do. So Bobby Polito is a very, very, very popular. Those of you who don't know him or of him, he's a very popular Tejano singer. And when Tallarico wrapped up Bobby Polito back in December, it was no question in my mind that James Tallarico was going to beat Jasmine Crockett, because even then and even now with the Hispanic vote, you cannot win without it at all. Let me show you. Let me show you this. Let me show you this really, really, really quick. And then I'm gonna get to why this is important for the Republicans that they are missing. Cristobal Alex, board chair of Latino Victory Fund and senior advisor to the Pro Tallarico Super PAC, noted the importance of the Hispanic vote in Texas and stressed the Tallarico campaign's focus on the voting bloc, which helped boost Tallarico in the primary against Representative Jasmine Crockett. The Texas Senate race will be decided, I want you to hear me, the Texas Senate race will be decided by Latino voters. He said, from my hometown, from El Paso to Corpus Christi, said Alex, who also served as senior advisor on former President Biden's 2020 campaign overseeing Texas. They are swing voters. And James Tallarico, from the launch of the campaign to his first Spanish ad, has been laser focused on building his coalition, Alex told The Hill, adding, for the first time in a generation, Democrats have a chance to win statewide in Texas. The Latino vote is the biggest swing vote in Texas. I'm going to say it again. The Latino vote is the biggest swing vote in Texas. So whoever wins them in big numbers is going to be victorious. Brandon Roddenhouse, a political science professor at the University of Houston, told The Hill in an interview. Now, we know, and somebody on my Facebook page came on my Facebook page and said, Dorothy, Hispanics are traditionally conservative. And they are. And they have been. However, Trump has crapped in the nest with these ICE raids, with the immigration policies that he has, that has not only put a lot of Hispanics out of work, but it has forced a lot of Hispanics to close their businesses. Plus, now, see, this is called biting the hand that feeds you, because the Hispanic vote in Texas gave Trump a huge win. I think Trump won the state by 14 points. Trump wouldn't have won that big had it not been for the Hispanic vote. The Hispanic vote went overwhelmingly to Donald Trump. However, the latest polls numbers are showing that while Hispanics have drifted away and the support for Trump has dwindled, they are still slow to embrace the Democrats, because Latino voters typically are more conservative. And that's where Tallarico is going to come in, as opposed to Paxton. And one thing that Hispanics are very strong on is their faith and family. Their faith and family. And that's what principally draw Hispanic voters to Republicans. That is not going to be the case this time, because not only is Paxton a serial adulterer, not only that, but Donald Trump has ticked off, I'll say it that way, a number of Hispanics when he chose to pick a fight with the Pope. Say, Dorothy, you crazy. No, because Hispanics are principally Catholic. And there was a backlash against that. So coupled with that, coupled with the horrific, horrific personal life of Paxton and the popularity of Tallarico with the Hispanic voters, coupled with his partnership, because he and Bobby Polito are like running like brothers. They are like running together. And the good thing about this ticket, y'all, and I know, how I'm gonna say it. How I'm gonna say it, black voters. Y'all gonna either get on the train or you're gonna get left behind. I don't know any way to say that. Hello? Y'all gonna either get on the train or get left behind, because when you look at what Tallarico, the support that he has, where it's coming from, who it is, and who the Democrats have at the top of the ticket. They have Tallarico, they have Gina Hinojosa, and they have Bobby Polito, who will, I believe, flip back Congressional District 15, I believe it's 15, down in Rio Grande. It's like that is solid. That is solid. So back to the Republicans, because that factor, the Hispanic factor, the population, the switch in the population, those are major factors in Texas. And the fact that this swath of Republicans have gone against the establishment Republicans is no big deal. Because like I said, the biggest story is not that Paxton won. The biggest story is what kind of Republican Party just rejected a Cornyn by that bigger margin. And that's the story. Because politics in Texas, with that vote on the Republican side, and I'm getting back to where I left off from the population, from the eras, because politics now has entered a new era in Texas. Although that you hear the stories and Tallarico and all this, the real story is that we are in a new era where, as I said before, emotional identification matters more than institutional credibility. I don't know if I said it that way, but I meant to say it that way. So this may actually make Texas more competitive nationally, not less. And even conservative analysts, if you listen to them, they're already saying that Paxton, in what we know, is a much riskier general election candidate and than Cornyn would have been. And the race has shifted, y'all. And if you hear the language, listen to the language. The language has shifted from likely Republican to leans Republican. That's major. That's major. So did Republicans just win the primary? Hallelujah. Yeah. But weaken themselves come November. Because the old values, and this is being played out every day, the old values of things like discipline and stability and institutional conservatism and governance, that's gone. That's gone. And we don't know what this new sea change of values is going to be, because the new sea change of GOP values is combativeness, cultural dominance, emotional loyalty, and anti-establishment identity. Everything that the Republican Party was, it is no more. I'm gonna say it again, and it makes me sad. It makes me sad as a former lifelong Republican, but it's the truth. Not only did Paxton and that faction win on Tuesday, they just didn't defeat John Cornyn. They sent a message to every Republican in America. saying this is the Republican now. This is the Republican Party now in Texas. So what kind of movement? You have to ask yourself, okay, what kind of movement then would reward a Paxton and reject a Cornyn? Y'all, this wasn't about Paxton just winning. It was about everybody watching. Let me show you a quote, and this is not the entire quote, but it's enough. This is from and I just picked this up, just happened to pick it up. It's from a woman named Brenda Platt. Brenda Platt is a Republican precinct chair in Wise County. It's here in the North Texas region. She said they impeached him, talking about Paxton. They impeached him, they indicted him, they tried to end his career. He just took a U.S. Senate seat from the most powerful Republican in Texas, Ken Paxton, the man the Republican establishment, you see how she put that in caps? The man the Republican establishment tried to destroy, just defeated 20-year incumbent Senator John Cornyn in a landslide. The Texas AG they impeached in 23, the man they put on trial in front of the entire country, the man every media outlet called finished. He just ended a political dynasty. She wasn't lying about that. And here's what should terrify Washington. Trump endorsed him 72 hours before the election. That's all it took. One Truth Social post and a 20-year senator was gone. Do you understand the power you just witnessed? One post, one endorsement, one man's word, and the entire Texas political establishment collapsed overnight. Is that something to brag about, though? Is that something to brag about? Now, she wasn't lying. The Texas GOP that was collapsed overnight. It's gone. And Cornyn represented that Republican Party of Texas that used to be. Paxton represents the Republican Party of Texas that has become. Republicans, and I'm saying it, Republicans held power in Texas for 3 decades. But don't get it twisted. That was the Republican Party of John Cornyn, the Rick Perrys, the George W. Bushes. Tuesday night marked the full arrival of something different, a new Republican Party. A new Republican Party. The old Texas GOP that was built on, family values, business conservatism, institutional power, donor networks, traditional Republican governors. The new Republican Party is built on anything but. It's built on confrontation. It's built on culture wars. It's built on populist grievance. And the last thing, absolute loyalty to Trump. Absolute loyalty to Trumpism. As a matter of fact, John Cornyn didn't lose Tuesday night. John Cornyn actually lost in 2022. John Cornyn lost in 2022 when he signed on. If y'all been watching me for any length of time, I told y'all. When he supported that gun control bill, that was stiff neck. When he supported that gun control bill under Biden, now he had no choice but to support the bill because 19 kids in Uvalde had been murdered. And the gun control bill was innocuous. It really did not do anything, as I said before. But that was a major deal to these gun-toting, you're not going to take away my gun, new Republican Texans. That was back in 2022. And as I have said over this past year, as I predicted that Paxton was going to win. I didn't predict that he would win. Nobody could have foreseen that he would win that big. But y'all know I've been saying for the past year, ain't no way in hell John Cornyn was going to win. Because these Republicans, this new Republican Party, they are unforgiving, very unforgiving. And they have long memories. And they are vindictive. That's the new Republican Party. So when he signed on to that bill in 2022, I don't know how many of you recall, but he was booed off the stage at the Republican convention in 2022. And it got so bad. And see, this is what I didn't understand. This is what I didn't understand, why John Cornyn did not read the tea leaves better. Because when he was booed off the stage in 2022, literally booed off the stage, he didn't even, although he attended the Republican convention in 2024, he didn't even go into the arena. I don't know if y'all remember that, but he didn't even go into the arena. He did like interviews in the hallway and stuff. He was already an outcast. But hope springs eternal, especially when you have been so entrenched for so long and it has worked for you for so long that he couldn't see the train coming down the track. He thought the light at the end of the tunnel was light, but it was actually a train, the Trump train, moving towards him to mow him over come 2026. And that's what happened. And that's the read on this race. So Tuesday night marked the full arrival of something different that we have not seen in Texas with this Republican Party. Now, I'm going to point this out. It has held power, as I said, since 1994. The Bush era, and then Rick Perry, and Greg Abbott. Greg Abbott, like I said, Greg Abbott is the last of the Mohicans, because Greg Abbott came into power in that era. When Cornyn was Attorney General and he got elected to the Senate, that's when Greg Abbott got elected as Attorney General. Rick Perry as governor. So Cornyn, Perry, Abbott, they're all of that same era. And the only one remaining of that era is Abbott, who has led the charge into this new era of Trumpism. But I'm going to tell you why that's a dangerous thing and why I don't believe it's going to last. Under their new leader, Paxton, for all intents and purposes, even though Dan Patrick as lieutenant governor, as we all know in Texas how it works, he's the most powerful political figure the lieutenant governor is. The figurehead, the governor, Abbott. But the de facto leader of this party now in Texas is Ken Paxton. As flawed as is. And that's why you have the people on the national level saying, these national analysts who are interviewing these people saying that now people on the national level, and as Republicans go, as far as this, this race, I had this neck thing, y'all. As far as this race goes, they are now going from likely Republican to leans, Leans, Republican, meaning I may or may not. I may or may not vote Republican. And those are the voters that Tallarico is going after to add to his power structure. When you look at Tallarico and you line them up, Tallarico has the Hispanic vote. Tallarico has the largest population segment in the state of Texas, and that's the Hispanics. I don't see Ken Paxton getting that back. He has the young vote. He has the white women vote. He has the white suburban vote. He has the rural vote. He has the urban area votes. The only vote that concerns me, and I said it at the beginning, is the black vote. And if Tallarico is going to be a very, very close race, the difference maker in that race is going to be black voters. Not that black voters will vote for Paxton, they won't, but they'll stay home. Because a number of them are still smarting over Jasmine Crockett. It's like, y'all, you got to get over it. Because if not, Paxton is going to win. And that's just the way it goes. So this is with this new Republican Party and Paxton being the face of this Republican Party, as flawed as he is, he's the man. And the clock started over Tuesday night. The clock started over Tuesday night. And what I mean by that? Because the party of Rick Perry, George W. Bush, Phil Gramm, and now John Cornyn, that party is no more. And what has come out and risen up out of the ashes, is it going to be able to maintain and have the same impact as the party, the Republican Party, has had for the past 3 decades? Because remember this, while it's true that no Democrat has been elected since 1994, I hope I have made it clear that the Republican Party that has held the power, that have fielded candidates like George W., like Rick Perry, like Phil Gramm, all those people, that's gone. And that's dead. And John Cornyn was part of the party that built the Republican Party into the power structure that it is today. And while that woman that I read y'all that quote, while she is bragging about Trump in one social media post and blah, blah this and blah, blah that, collapsed and brought down the entire Republican Party, all I can say is what a fool. And why do I say that? Why do I say that? Because the Republican Party that has built the dominance in this state is gone. It's no more. The big bad monster in the room, and while they can brag about that, that party is dead. The clock restarted Tuesday. And because of what happened Tuesday night, it wasn't simply a victory for Ken Paxton. It was the formal rejection of the old Republican order in Texas, which means that since it was a rejection of the old Republican structure order in Texas, that is the same Republican order that built the power structure that is today. So while that woman is bragging what she is bragging about, she don't know what she's bragging about. What she's bragging about is he brought the kingdom down. To use her word, collapsed. And that's exactly what happened. Now, make no mistake about it. And that's why I see, like I said, the 3 eras, ERAS, the Bush era, the Tea Party era, the John Cornyn, that era, it's gone. And now you're left with the era of Trump and Paxton. Trump, Paxton, and Abbott. And what Abbott has done, because Abbott, you can call him what you want, but he's a master strategist. Abbott saw this coming because Abbott was part of the structure that built the power that has held power since 1994. And some of you aren't even old enough to remember. Some of you weren't even involved in politics. Certainly, Opie, Tallarico, he wasn't even born. So this is all new. And I keep going back to this, y'all. And I'm going to say it. And I'm going to say something else. Y'all heard me say it again. But the last thing I'm going to say about this race, like I said, that the national people aren't picking up on, because you have to be, you have to look at this thing from the inside out. The Republican Party didn't move away from John Cornyn Tuesday night, because like I said, this has been building for years. But Tuesday night was the moment, and I want you to hear this. Tuesday night was the moment that the transformation became undeniable. So what does that mean? We don't know. And like I was about to say, Greg Abbott knows what time it is. That's why Greg Abbott has been feverishly building his fiefdom in the state legislature. And y'all know what I mean. Y'all know how Greg Abbott got those 4 or 5 Republican representatives defeated so that he could bring in his own bought and paid for Republicans that would do his bidding. He's the last of the Mohicans. And what Greg Abbott has tried to do is secure the new Texas, the new Republican Party, to make the new Republican Party as impactful and powerful as the Republican Party has been since 1994. And then in comes a James Tallarico that they did not see coming. So really, y'all, that's where this thing is. And if there's going to be any movement, in the future, Greg Abbott, we know, everybody knows Greg Abbott wants to be president. Can he beat a J.D. Vance, or will he run next time? Who knows? But he wants to be. And we know that Dan Patrick desperately wants to be governor. And if Ted Cruz, I'm just telling you, as I see this next movement, if Ted Cruz doesn't get a Supreme Court appointment by that time, Craig, don't be surprised if Ted Cruz don't come back to Texas to run for governor in this new, because he represents that Trump party, that new Republican Party. Even though Abbott is the last of the Mohicans of the old, he represents that. So y'all, that's my take on this race. And like I said, it's just not a race that Ken Paxton won, and Opie is going to be tough to beat. Let me show you what happened with Opie today. Opie got, which is unusual, the Houston Chronicle endorsed him today. And the Houston Chronicle, and this is early, and it's still May. The Houston Chronicle editorial board said Tallarico isn't running simply as a Democrat trying to beat a Republican. Tallarico is running as a Texan taking on corruption in Washington. Let me show you this. How bad is this boy? Tallarico raised $3 million in 24 hours after Paxton was named the GOP. I'm the nominee. $3 million in 24 hours. We'll see. But the dominance of the Republican Party in Texas, don't let them fool y'all. Because it's not the same Republican Party that has dominated for the past 30 years. Not that collapsed on Tuesday. So whether this Republican Party is able to carry on that tradition, it'll be fun to see. But Tallarico has a real good shot. And that's the way I see it. And Tallarico looks more like Texas than Ken Paxton. Ken Paxton is 63. Average age of Texans is 35.6. Tallarico, I think, is 37. It's a new Texas. And the Republicans know it. They feel it. And if anybody was going to defeat Tallarico, it would have been Cornyn and the party that has defeated Democrats for the past 30 years. That's how I see it. That's all I got, y'all. I hope I made sense. Look, you got a pain neck. I woke up this morning, I slept wrong. Then I went for my walk and I was like, oh God. But I was not going to do this tonight, even though my brain was scattered. I had so many thoughts. But that's the real story, y'all, behind this whole thing. And as you watch it play out in the national media and you hear them talk and you hear them, all this and that and say, Texas hadn't elected a Democrat. Well, in 30 years, you can say, yeah, that's true, but. Yeah. Because the clock started over Tuesday. Yeah. So we'll see what they do. We will see what they do. We'll see what Tallarico does. And Susie's on my channel members. I love you, Susie. Thank you. Another big tale is the anti-Semitic former GOP Tarrant chair. Both French is supported by West Texas billionaires and trust and believe that Paxton, thank you for that, Susie. Trust and believe that Paxton is going to be supported by the same billionaires too, because he always has been. And we're talking about the Wilkes brothers, y'all. We're talking about Ferris Wilkes and his brother, and we're talking about Dunn. So it was interesting. And I told y'all then, I said then, it was interesting that Cruz and Abbott didn't make an endorsement, although we knew that Paxton was their guy. And Robert Jeffress down there at First Baptist. Now he is sitting on John Cornyn's faith committee. Now, if you're sitting on somebody's committee, wouldn't you endorse them? Robert Jeffress didn't. Because Robert Jeffress knew who he was going to vote for. I'm telling y'all, this new Republican Party is going to be interesting to watch. And I do not believe, this is just me personally, from being, I'm part of the old Republican Party from 40 years. I don't believe they're going to be able to do it. I don't think they're going to be able to. I do not think they're going to be able to pull it off. And that's, y'all, the real story behind why Tallarico scares them to death. They don't have that safety net anymore. What they have is what I showed you, that woman said, they got all this brashness, they got boldness, they got Trump, one tree, all this there. But y'all, that's not how the Republican Party held sway for the past 30 years in Texas. And those who are involved, those who really know the backstory, and those who really, really, really know, they are scared to death. Because even me, being, in this stuff for as long as I've been, I can't see it. Because the caliber of people that they have, and they have no substance. They have grievance. They don't have it. They don't. And they know they don't have it. And then you got Opie, Tallarico, appealing to these different groups. And Tallarico, I'm telling you, Tallarico is going after these disaffected Republicans. Because you have these call them disaffected Republicans. You have these Republicans who are whiplash. Because they're like, what? What just happened? What just happened? So he has a really good shot at those people, the disaffected Republicans. And y'all, Paxton has a very public divorce coming up this summer. Well, all that stuff is going to come out. Yeah. It's not the Republican Party that has held power. While they say rhino, they are rhino. Because their metal has yet to be tested. Because their clock just started Tuesday. Yeah. Yeah. They're going to miss John Cornyn more than they know. More than they know. Susan said I couldn't believe State Representative Briscoe Kane. I didn't follow that race, so I don't know about that. So anyway, y'all, that's all I got. I'm gonna go take some muscle relaxer with Nick. But y'all, that's the backstory. That is the backstory. And when y'all hear that sea change, like Ted Cruz said, just know what they mean by that sea change. It was. And we'll see if this new Republican Party in Texas sink or swim. That's how I see it, y'all. Y'all take care. I love you. And if the Lord say the same, I will see you next Thursday. Take care.